Hey there, fellow noobs! It's great to see you again. Come on in, take a seat. Today on Noobs Adventures in Destiny, we're taking on the level 32 Prison of Elders, also known as Urrox Grudge, with Dr. Silas. Well, he'll eventually start helping. Even though he's there right now, he eventually falls away. He's essentially AFK right now. And also my brother, Smeezy McTeasy. Thanks to the PS4, this is being done with post-commentary because I've really got to get on testing, recording a PS4 broadcast because I think that's really the only way to get all of our live commentary together with our current hardware setup. But post-commentary is totally okay because today we're going to talk a bit about our adventures at Boston Comic Con. Yay! Wah, Kermit Flail! So anyway, a couple of weekends ago, Madam Noob and I attended Boston Comic Con. This was our first major comic convention, and holy crap, it was such a cool time. Was it overwhelming? Absolutely. Was it still fun? Yes. And now it's time to discuss it at length. Woo! If you've been to comic conventions or any other type of conventions like gaming, anime, etc., I'm curious, how was it for you? What did you end up doing? Did you cosplay? Did you run a panel? Did you attend panels? Did you have any cool moments? As I'm talking about our experiences, I would love to hear about your experiences too, so please don't hesitate to leave a comment. So what did Madam Noob and I do? And actually, not a lot. I mean, in terms of scheduled convention events, we did not cosplay. Creating a costume is still planned, but we haven't completed anything yet. Eventually, I would love to do a cosplay of Vash the Stampede from Trigun. I love that coat. That coat is just incredible. I also just love Vash as a character. I think he's awesome. He is my spirit animal. And I'd love to eventually do a Deadpool cosplay. And more specifically, a Deadpool cosplay from Uncanny X-Force. But, so we didn't cosplay this time. I mean, I don't even know how to sew at this point. So that's something we gotta work on. Madam Noob and I spent the majority of our time actually wandering the convention floor, staring at pretty pictures by all of the artists there, and I'll admit this right now that is totally my weak spot. Pretty art. I wanted to buy all the things. Thankfully, my wallet was all like, Noob, you're crazy. You can only buy some things. So that's what I did. I bought some cool buttons. One's a chibi cloud from Final Fantasy VII, some are from Okami, and one of them is large with a drawing of Mary Poppins on it, and it says, I'm Julie fucking Andrews. And I love that one, because that is totally the attitude Mary Poppins has during that whole movie, where, I guess, more appropriately, she's just carrying around the attitude of, I am Mary fucking Poppins, and you will listen to what I say, and I am right about everything. So shut up. So I had to pick up a button about that. I also bought a bunch of prints of all sorts of stuff, ranging from Fluttershy in Sugar Skull makeup from like Dia de los Muertos, all the way to a simple pinup of Tali Vas Normandy from Mass Effect. I mean, it really was like the gamut of just stuff. And it is awesome, and I am so pumped about getting some of that stuff framed and hanging up in the apartment. Madam Noob actually got a commission from Phil Noto, who is the artist for the current Black Widow series. It's a fantastic headshot of Storm, and Madam Noob did not specify when she said Storm as the commission, but Phil Noto chose the best Storm. That's right, Mohawk Storm. Yep, I said it. Argue with me. I dare ya. Now, the convention, being our first major convention, there were a lot of lessons that we learned after attending. And one of the major lessons that I learned was get commissions. Get specifically as many commissions as you can afford. Yeah, prints are cool, but commissions are cooler because they are, you know, unique and they were done there, you know. So plan for next major convention, whenever we happen to attend that, will be wander the convention floor on the first day, finding all of the pretty artists whose styles we love, and then find out if they're doing commissions, and then if so, sign up for one. But yeah, I mean, probably gonna have to do all that on the first day, because like by the middle of day 2, Phil Noto already had to put up a sign saying that he was full up on commissions and couldn't take any more. And yeah, there were some artists who were still taking commissions like on the last day, but there were plenty who were done by Saturday. I mean, it really comes down to the artist's, you know, level of, I'd say dedication, maybe level, just schedule. I don't even want to make it sound like, oh, it's the artist's fault that they can only do so many commissions. It really is just how much time do they actually have, because commissions take work, take time, and you know, they want to actually enjoy their weekend as well. But yeah, that's a big lesson we learned. Get commissions done, which would be very cool. I'd love. I only now, after the convention, you know, as my brain is finally recovering, do I have ideas for like, oh, these would be a commission I'd like to have done. This would be a commission. Ooh, this would be awesome. Another thing we did at the convention, though, is we met tons of incredible people. I mean, we met like Phil Noto, we met cosplayers, writers, normal people, and even celebrities. And if you're an introvert like I am, you're going to have to really store up as much extroversion as you can before you go to one of these things, because at the end of every day, I was pretty much done with all manner of human beings. I was like, nope, let me just crawl into the room and hide, please. But then you had to wake up and do it all the next day. But that kind of goes back into the whole like, oh, we didn't do too many con activities, because in reality, we were exhausted like every day. So we ended up waking up later, like each day. So there were some events we just missed due to sleep. Then there were other events that we just simply were like, no, we're just gonna chill out here on the convention floor and people watch. We got to meet Jerry Duggan. He is the co-writer of one of the latest Deadpool series. It sounds like he's also going to be doing some work on Uncanny Avengers, because when we spoke with him on like the first day, he mentioned that, because we mentioned that we love Deadpool and we had him sign one of our Deadpool comics, and it was awesome. And he is awesome. He was actually incredibly personable and very clearly and wonderfully able to put up with my awkwardness, because like I said, we met him on the first day, but then I also, like, I was very awkward in that first meeting, because I was like, oh my god, this is Jerry Duggan. He's an artist for Marvel Comics. Oh my god, he's like demigod level by comparison to me, and I am not worthy to even address him as a person. But then by the end of the convention, when I like still saw him like each day, he was there for all 3 days. You know, I saw that he was like he was not only talking with people, but he was like getting selfies with people. He was just shaking hands. He was being very personable and approachable. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do this. And I approached him on the last day and was like, hey, so would it be cool if I got a selfie with you? And he was like, yeah, totally, dude. So I mean, in the first one, and I don't know if you saw that on my Twitter, that I posted one of those pictures, because it's like, oh my god. But he took one initially where he was kind of looking stern and pointing at the camera, kind of in a just humorous manner. But then he was like, all right, so do you want to take one where I'm smiling? And I was like, oh my god, yeah. So got 2 pictures with him, and it was another great lesson for us, is that a lot of the people who are there attending these conventions, like the writers and artists, celebrities, so on and so forth, they are there because they wish to interact with the fans. Like, they want to meet you. And so they're personable, they're fun, and you can speak to them like they are normal human beings. And it is awesome. And there was, so we attended 2 things that were scheduled for the convention. And they were pretty big, especially the first one. We got to meet, I mean, as well as one can meet a god, we got to meet Stan Lee. Yeah, exactly. The Stan Lee. We got our picture taken with him and attended his panel and got stuff signed by him. It was amazing. He's such an incredible person. Like, he's just so positive about everything. He doesn't like to dwell on the negative of anything. People were asking, like, oh, what are your favorites of this? Or what is, like, something you regret? Or is there a storyline that, you know, you rejected that eventually made it into Marvel and was a huge deal? Or what were some of the worst, you know, pitches you ever saw for storylines or characters? And whenever it was like a negative, he was like, I don't even remember. I don't know. And then when you ever asked him like a favorite, he was always like, well, I don't have favorites. I just loved everything that I did at Marvel, you know, and all of it was great. he was so comically arrogant, because you could tell he was just being arrogant to be funny. Like, he's not an arrogant person. It was just very, very awesome to listen to him talk about his work and what he's been doing, because he's so positive. He loves the fans. You know, some of the, I think, you know, it was like a bittersweet panel, because, you know, I've been going through all like this happy stuff, but he is old and it shows, you know, sadly. I mean, he has a personal assistant who functions a little bit more like a handler, because even Stan Lee admitted that his eyesight and his hearing are just terrible now. So like during the Q&A, he was not really hearing any of the questions from the audience. It was his handler listening to the question, Max Anderson, and then turning to Stan Lee and saying, and repeating the question back to him, like within, you know, just a couple of inches, so that Stan Lee could properly hear it. Now, Stan Lee would provide an answer for most questions. Meanwhile, he's signing things. But so, I mean, it was incredible just on that alone. So, you know, he still was very sharp. Like, his mind is still there, thank goodness. It's just his senses kind of aren't. You know, his physical senses aren't. You know, I'd say probably the saddest thing that I learned at his panel is that he can't read the comics anymore. He even said that, like, because somebody asked, oh, what's your favorite? You know, what are your favorite current storylines? And he was like, oh, I don't know. I don't get to read the comics anymore. My eyesight can't handle it anymore. You know, so the only way he knows what's going on is when he attends conventions and talks to the fans, which, I mean, is cool, but also it's like, oh no, Stan Lee. Oh, you're getting so old. Ah. But like I mentioned just a few moments ago, when he was answering questions, he was signing. Like, so the panel was supposed to be only like 2 hours. And he started signing, I'd say 15 to 20 minutes into the panel. That dude didn't stop signing things until an hour after the panel was supposed to end. Like, that guy was signing things for like 2.5 hours straight, while like trying to pay attention to the questions being asked, answering questions. I mean, it was incredible. He just kept going. He was like, okay, I can do this. And it really, like, it kind of showed, again, was another great example of like just his love for the fans. I mean, pretty much every story that he or his handler told demonstrated his love for the fans, which was even funnier because his handlers, you know, it causes his handlers more stress, because now they have to deal with fans in addition to trying to get him from one place to the other. And, you know, the banter that Stan Lee had with his handlers was fantastic. It was so entertaining because it played very much like, I was equating it to Statler and Waldorf, the old man Muppets. If you don't know them, I would say go to the internet and look up some videos of them, because they're just funny. They're just always, they kind of bicker with each other, and then they always heckle the audience, and it was kind of like that when they were telling us their stories. We were incredibly fortunate to be able to attend that panel. The other cool panel we got to attend was Haley Atwell's panel. And if you don't know, she is the actress who plays Peggy Carter in the Captain America movies and now has her own TV show called Agent Carter, which has been picked up for a second season. And she's kind of tiny, she's kind of wafy, but she just speaks with such a lovely British accent that she's just so charming. Like, you just can't help but be like, oh, keep talking and just tell stories, please. And she's also clearly a huge fan of the fans. She loves her fans, because even when she was entering the panel room, there was like 400 people lined up outside waiting to get in. And when she walked by, they were like cheering for her, and she was even whooping it up as the fans kind of started doing that. Like, she matched the fans' energy. It was very fun. There was a point where some of the fans who got up to the microphone asked if they could teach her and Brett Dalton, who was the moderator, some Irish dance moves, which could have been a really awkward thing, but she and Brett were both very good sports, and they're like, yeah, we'll totally do this. And so they went around their table and got down on the floor and did a couple of dance moves. It was kind of fun. Something that was kind of funny is that she and Brett both got to learn what a headcanon is, because they were confused at first, which is perfectly understandable, but it's canon with one N. So it's more like, it relates to fan fiction. If you don't know, it relates to fan fiction and the stories you come up with within your own head most times based on what is presented within the TV show or the movies or whatnot. But they had no idea, and the audience got to explain that to them. The Q&A got a little Tumblr heavy and awkward, but Haley Atwell rolled with it, which was kind of fun. And I gotta say, I was a fan of hers before the panel, and since the panel, I'm an even bigger fan. And speaking of bigger fans, Brett Dalton, as I mentioned earlier, was the moderator for Haley's panel, and he was very entertaining. He plays Agent Ward on the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show on ABC. And even though no spoilers, but I'm just not a fan of his character on that show. But after seeing him at this panel, I'm now a big fan of him as a person, because he, at least at the convention, presents himself as a very fun person. He was very funny, very entertaining. Now, just in case you were curious, neither Madam Noob nor I actually got the guts to stand up and ask a question of either Stan or Haley, but honestly, no regrets. Aside from my picture with Stanley, we got right next to him because that's how they were doing the pictures, and I just kind of freaked. Like, I froze up, and I got a serious case of crazy eyes going. Whoops. But overall, Boston Comic Con was an incredible experience. Again, by the end of it, we were exhausted, but running on such a huge adrenaline high. And if you ever have an inkling to go to a comic convention or anime convention or gaming convention, something that interests you like that, please go. Even if it's not for like the weekend, please go for a day. Whether it's a big or small convention. And I now kind of mention small conventions because several years ago, Madam Noob and I went to a smaller one closer to us, and we got to actually meet Peter Mayhew, the actor who plays Chewbacca, and we got to speak with him about his time out in the frozen north when they were shooting The Empire Strikes Back. And he just loved to tell the stories of his time, really kind of behind the scenes. He wasn't too keen on like, oh, what's it like to play Chewbacca. He was just like, oh, when we were out there, there was like a train but it was like a train on treads that had to take you up to where we were shooting the movie. So it was like, you know, hours to get to where the movie was being shot and so on and so forth, and it was freezing, and I mean, yeah, the suit was made out of fur, but I was warmer than everybody else, but I was still not very warm. You know, stories like that, it was very cool to, you know, talk with him. And again, he is a huge human being. Like, when I shook his hand, my hand, and my hand's almost big enough to palm a basketball, but my hand like wrapped around his fingers, and that was like the best I could do in terms of shaking his hand. Like, it was incredible. You know, another person who I got to meet at this small convention was Tom Kane, the voice of the professor from the Powerpuff Girls, Mr. Harriman from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, the voice of the Admiral from Star Wars The Clone Wars, and I mean, oh, and also Magneto from just about anything that's been done related to the X-Men in the last, like, 10 years. So I mean, when I got to meet him, I totally fanboyed. I was just babbling and just really didn't get control of myself at that point. I just was like, oh my god, I love you and everything you do, blah, blah, blah. And he took that all in stride, which was awesome. But I mentioned those couple of stories right there about like who we got to meet at these smaller conventions, just to highlight that, you know, if there isn't a major convention near you, or a major convention nearby is like too expensive for tickets, you know, don't be discouraged, because you could still meet some great people at a smaller convention. You know, there's nothing about not, you know, attending a smaller convention. So more lessons that we ended up kind of learning is that, I mean, you gotta be, like I mentioned about the extroversion, whenever you want to take a picture of a cosplayer, it's proper etiquette to walk up to them and actually speak with them and be like, hey, is it cool if I take your picture? Which, for me, is again, total introvert here, was very tough. Like, that was very tricky of me to actually be able to approach strangers and ask them, hey, is it cool if I take your picture? But I'm definitely all the better for it, because I met some really cool people. There was one person at this convention. I didn't recognize their costume on the first day, but they were Zeus on the first day, and then I saw them as Maleficent on the second day, and then they were Doctor Strange on the third day. And these were all costumes made by him, and which was awesome. And, you know, I asked him just how many costumes you have, like how many costumes you made, and he was like, oh, 17. It's like, you know, I'm still trying to learn how to, you know, sew and to just make my first costume, and my mind exploded. And the cosplayer standing next to him was done up as Blade, and he mentioned that he had been Bane the day before, and he was working on 7 costumes at the moment. It was incredible. I mean, you had, you know, cosplayers at that level of creativity, and then, you know, you had cosplayers who had the one costume and, you know, did the one thing, and it was pretty much always, it was very cool to see. And there was such a variety of cosplayers even at this convention. You know, you say comic convention and you're not gonna get just comic book cosplay, you're gonna get everything. I mean, there were so many Steven Universe TV show cosplays, like several pearls, various amethysts running around. There were a couple of garnets and some rose quartzes running around. Like, it was just very cool. There was even a Ms. Frizzle from the Magic School Bus. Anybody remember that show? No? Did I just date myself? Maybe. It may have just happened. I don't know if the Magic School Bus is still like on and making new episodes or anything. But it was cool for Madam Noob and I to see that, because we, watched that show when we were younger. So I was like, yay! It was, again, we learned a couple, there were even some more lessons that we kind of learned about, like, it's okay to leave the convention and come back later. Like, the first day was probably our longest day because we arrived early. You know, we arrived before the doors opened at like noon. Doors opened at noon, and we arrived before then. And we technically ended up, like, by the end of the day, we had left the convention at like midnight because of just the way, like, the Stan Lee panel ran, and so on and so forth. Thankfully, though, we did have the foresight, I'd say, to bail at, like, I don't know, what, like, sometime in the mid-afternoon, where we were like, okay, we gotta go home, we gotta go back to the hotel, recover. Which we did. Like, we went back, we pretty much took like an hour nap, and then we came back. And that was fine. We ended up doing that like on Saturday as well. You know, if you gotta take a break from the convention, you know, because originally I went in, I was like, oh no, when we go to the convention, we're just gonna stay there forever, and we're never gonna leave. You know, that's what you do. You never leave the convention. That's silly. No, turns out that was just in my own head. Nope, you leave when you want. You've got your wristband. You can come and go as you please. You know, the other big lesson that I learned is you don't have to attend any panels, you know, any non-ticketed panels if you don't want to. No, you can. I mean, really, you could go to one of these conventions and just sit down on the floor or sit in a chair somewhere and just people watch all day long. It's crazy. Awesome, but crazy all at the same time. So, that's my rambling on Boston Comic Con, and that has brought us to the conclusion of this Prison of Elders. Sadly, I can report that we do not acquire an exotic weapon this time, unlike the first time. That happens. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I've had a great time. I hope you have too. If so, please do hit that thumbs up button. It really does help our noob community grow. And if you want to keep up with all of the great content coming up and are not currently a member of the noob community, I do hope you consider hitting that subscribe button. We'd love to have you here. I am the Perpetual Noob, and I hope to see you all next time.